many other things, runs the Public Understanding of Science project at Jesus College, Cambridge, has written a challenge to Richard Dawkins's best-selling book, The God Delusion. Both men join us now. John Cornwall, you've given your book a rather charming but quite gentle-sounding title, Darwin's Angel, a seraphic response to the God Delusion. But I think, in fact, you feel very strongly about this, don't you?
Yes, the symbol of the angel was for a lightness of touch and to remind us of the importance of the imagination. But I find myself in very deep disagreement with Richard Dawkins, particularly over what we do about religion. I mean, I absolutely don't deny that there's a huge problem in the way in which religion, religious believers can morph into something quite monstrous. What Richard Dawkins has done is to use his brilliant imagination to demonize and depersonalize religious believers by invoking the most alienating and fearful of all images, which has terrible sort of precedents in the 1920s and 1930s in Germany. He parallels religion with a cultural virus that's so evil that he says it's even worse than paedophile abuse. So he clearly thinks that religious believers can't and shouldn't be members of civil democratic society.
So you're not taking him on in theological terms, as it were. You're not taking him on the question of whether God exists. You're taking on his methods, his polemics.
That's absolutely it. It's more of a social and political argument. What do we do about the problem of religion when it morphs into something extreme?
Richard Dawkins, I suppose in a way it's quite flattering to have an entire book dedicated to refuting your own. I presume you've read it. What did you make of it?
I have read it. First of all, I'd like to thank John Cornwall for his marvellous review of my previous book, The Ancestor's Tale, and I'm sorry he didn't read The God Delusion with the same attention as he did that book. It is complete nonsense to say that I liken religion to, I don't know what it was you said, something terrible.
A virus, I think, spreading through society.
Well, I have likened it to a virus, but that's a very special point. And I haven't said that it's worse than paedophilia. I've said that in one respect, labeling children with the religion of their parents when they're too young to know what they believe is a form of child abuse. Actually, in my book, I was rather gentle with especially Catholic priests who come in for a lot of stick for their paedophile shenanigans. I actually defended them by saying that actually that it's exaggerated. But I went on to say that some aspects of religious education, indoctrination, and particularly labeling children, is a form of abuse which is as bad as the milder forms of sexual abuse, is the way I put it, I think.
Are you guilty of playing with the evidence a bit, John Cornwall, of taking some of the things that you told us about out of context?
Absolutely not. The chapter in which he talks about paedophile abuse happens when he gave a lecture in Ireland. And he actually, and I'm saying this word for word, says that he thinks that it's worse than paedophile abuse. But that apart, you know, the main point here is, what do we do about the problem of religious extremism? And I believe that the way forward always is to try to persuade the extremists to become part of a pluralist society. I mean, this has worked, for 400 years in many parts of the world, particularly where you've had sectarian conflict. My challenge to Richard Dawkins is to ask him whether he actually does believe, and I'm asking it on this program, that religionists can become part of a pluralist society under a secular auspices. Because from everything that he's written in this book, he's inspiring hatred against religionists and making them feel that they're, not welcome as part of civil society.
Well, it's a straight question, Richard Dawkins. Yep, go ahead.
This is complete nonsense. I don't say anything like that. Of course I agree that plenty of good people are religious, that religious people have done good things throughout history. None of that is untrue.
Let's be a bit more specific about, because as I understood John Cornwall's question to you, his challenge to you, it was, do you believe that those who believe in religion, who are religionists, I think was the word you used, can be part of a pluralist society? It's quite a specific point.
Well, of course I do.
Right, well, there we are, John Cornwall. There we are.
This is a genuinely difficult question. What do we actually do, as John Cornwall says? Now, on the one hand, you can say, let's take the extremists and try to bring them into the big tent of moderates. And most of us are moderate. Very, very few people.
Oh dear. we've lost, I think, by the sound of it, Richard Dawkins. Well, in the meantime, I hope we've still got you, John Cornwall.
Yes, you have, yes.
Well, you heard him answer your question in a very straight manner. He said, of course he believes that those who take a religious approach to life have a place within a pluralistic society.
Well, I'm glad he said this, because it is a major step back from his book. I mean, anybody who's read his book knows that he says that there's no such thing as moderate religion. All faith, is potentially extremist, whether you go to church once a week or whether, you're an Al-Qaeda terrorist. And
okay, well, we've got him back, I think, and we lost him in mid-flow, but let's pick up where we are. Richard Dawkins, do you believe that all forms of faith are forms of religious extremism, which is the latest accusation that John Cornwall has made against you?
No, potentially.
Of course I do not. Nothing of the kind. I've never said anything remotely like that. What I have said is that religious faith, teaching people that faith is a virtue, that believing without evidence is a virtue, is dangerous, because when it gets into the wrong hands, it can lead to extremism. But of course I'm not saying that all religious people are evil or all religious people are extremists, which is what John Cornwall accuses me of in his book, along with various other falsehoods, by the way.
Oh dear, you've raised a whole new sort of field to go into at just the moment when we're going to have to leave it. Richard Dawkins and John Cornwall, thank you both very much indeed.